Hey, everybody, what's going on? It's your man, Big B, Brian Hanley. Welcome back to Steelers Almighty. Man, we got a good show for you guys today, man. First things first, dynamic trio as far as the tight end. Steelers are going to do a lot of things with tight ends. We're going to talk a little bit about that and what that may look like. Then, Derrick Harmon. So far, he has been that dude. Maybe didn't flash the way that people wanted him to in the first preseason game, but that's okay. But he is that guy for the Pittsburgh Steelers, or at least he has been so far. Next up, Aaron Rodgers, man. He has changed the dynamics of the offense. We talked about what Jalen Ramsey and Darius Slay did for the defense. Aaron Rodgers is doing that from the offense in a little bit different way. So we're going to discuss that. And then what does success look like in 2025 for the Pittsburgh Steelers? A lot of different, anticipation as far as what the Steelers need to do, what the expectations are. But we're going to talk about what real success for the Pittsburgh Steelers needs to look like in 2025. So appreciate everybody being in here. You can always find us on YouTube at youtube.com/Steelers Almighty. All your social media platforms at Steelers Almighty. And if you prefer the audio version, again, anywhere you get a podcast, you can find us at Steelers Almighty. So without further ado, remember to like, follow, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Hit the notification bell so you know exactly when Steelers Almighty content comes out. Let's get into this. So first thing first, the dynamic trio as far as the tight ends. That's what I'm calling it. I'm calling it the dynamic trio. Some people aren't saying a whole lot about that yet, but I am, because I like what the Steelers are going to do. Now, here's the one thing that I will mention, a little negativity up front. In 13 personnel last season, the Steelers were pretty bad at it. One of the worst in the National Football League, if not the worst. Having said that, the tight end room looked a little different. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, it's just one guy. I would venture to say it's two different guys, because Darnell Washington is a different football player this year than what he was last year. You can just look at him and say, okay, this guy's different. So he's a different guy. Jonnu Smith is miles better than Michael Pruitt or Connor Hayward, whatever you want to say. Bottom line is the tight end room is better. It is absolutely better. And I think those two guys also are going to make Pat Freiermuth better. If for nothing else, it's going to push him to be better, because he doesn't want his opportunities to be limited, because these guys are good football players. So I think the trio clearly is better for that reason. But let's kind of dig in a little bit here. Now, I'll start with Jonnu Smith. Jonnu is a pure pass catcher, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want there to be any mistake in who Jonnu Smith is. He is a pass catcher. Now, some people have tried to say, well, can you line him up and be a wide receiver too? No, you can't do that. That's not what he is. Can you put him in the slot in certain situations? 1,000%. Yes, you can. But he is not an outside receiver, but he can get you those matchups. He can get open. He's got good hands. He runs good routes. He can catch the ball down the middle of the field. He is a pure pass catcher. Now, when it comes to blocking, okay, that's a different conversation altogether, because Jonnu is not a blocker. That's not what he excels in. But do you really need him to excel as a blocker? He needs to get in the way. He needs to be able to handle and hold his own a little bit from time to time. But I don't think Jonnu has to be, okay, this guy's a point of attack. We're running outside zone. He's got to be the front side of that all the time. From time to time, yeah, he's going to have to do that. You can't always run away from him in those situations. So, yeah, there's going to be some times where he has to step up and do that. But for the most part, backside cutoff, get in the way of guys on the backside, maybe go dig out a safety from the backside or even the front side from time to time. But blocking is not his thing, but he is a pure pass catcher and can cause matchup problems. Let's go to Muth. Look, Steeler fans know what Pat Freiermuth is. Again, not the greatest blocker. We don't want to confuse that, but Pat Freiermuth can catch the football. Outstanding hands, runs crisp and good routes. He can get open. The last time that people saw Pat Freiermuth, this is why people are so upset, is because against Baltimore in that playoff game, he caught a pass and couldn't get another half yard to get a first down against a guy that's 180 pounds. And people are frustrated by that. And they should be. Have a little wiggle, a little more power, something to be able to get an extra. I don't even think it was a half yard to get a first down. Wasn't able to do that. So people are a little upset. But here's the thing, man. Pat Freiermuth is a good football player. Don't let that dissuade you. That offense last year, by the time we got to the Ravens, it was stuck in the mud. It just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And he was part of it. I'm not blaming it on him or saying it was his fault, but the offense was just stuck in the mud at that point in time. But he led the team in receiving. He had 65 catches. He was second in receiving yards, and he led the team in touchdowns. So Pat Freiermuth is a weapon, ladies and gentlemen. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Now, when it comes to, again, his blocking, he's better than Jonnu Smith. I'll give you that. He's better than him, but he's not this, you're going to run wide and he's going to be at the point of attack, just blowing up defensive ends, coming off the double team and blocking a backer. You want Pat to get in the way. You want him to try. His blocking did get better last year. That's one thing. It got better from previous years. But he is, again, more of a pass-catching tight end. Now you move to Mount Washington. Look, here's the thing that I will say. He's the blocker. He is absolutely that. He was 67.7% as far as his run grade blocking last year. And he's a big dude. 6'7", 290 pounds. That whole, he's only 265 pounds. Stop it. Have you all seen him next to Broderick Jones, who weighs 305 to 315, depending on what you want to look at? Let's just say, even if Broderick is 305, does Darnell Washington look smaller than him? Absolutely not. He doesn't. So this whole myth that Darnell Washington is only 265 pounds, you're kidding yourself. That is not the case. But Wash is the blocker, and he holds his own blocking defensive ends. Even if he has to double team if they move a tackle over and he has to double team coming backside, even on a D tackle, come down on a D tackle, get up on the linebacker. Darnell Washington can block, ladies and gentlemen. He can absolutely do that. But what people also don't understand is he got better as a pass catcher last year. And his PF grade, or PFF grade, if that's your holy grail to understand what football players did last year, it was 69 last year as far as pass receiving. So he got better. Look, I think Washington, his problem with people thinking, he can't do this, he can't do that. He came into the league, remember, with a knee injury. And I just think it took him a while to get over it. His first year, he got over it. He looked a little bit more mechanical last year. But we've seen him so far this year. He looks a lot more fluid. I think his knee may finally be healthy, or the healthiest it's going to be. And he looks a lot more healthy, a lot more fluid. You already knew he had hands. The Steelers just have to utilize him more. Now, a lot of people act like, okay, he's going to be an offensive tackle. Like, it's a make or break season to see if he can break out as a tight end. And if he can't, the Steelers need to move him to tackle, especially if Broderick Jones can't get the job done. Well, first off, they're not moving Washington to tackle this year. That's not going to happen. So anybody that's got that illusion or just puts out the silly comment, well, just put him at tackle now. No, that's not going to happen this season. I'm not saying it won't happen next season, but in 2025, that is not going to happen. And it doesn't need to happen. It shouldn't happen. He's not ready to play offensive tackle. But he did say he was open to it, ladies and gentlemen. That's the whole thing. He was asked that question, And he said, right now I'm a tight end. But if they ask me to do it, yeah, I'll do it. I'm open to it, and I think I can do it well. So there's that. So I think Washington has a future in Pittsburgh, whether it's tight end or tackle or something. I feel like Mount Washington might be in Pittsburgh for a lot longer than maybe some people are anticipating, regardless of the position that he plays. I like what he's doing this year. I think he's kind of the X factor because, again, I think the Steelers are going to be in a lot of 13 personnel stuff. They're going to do a lot of 13, even 12. Heck, we've seen in preseason, they've been 04 personnel where Jonnu Smith was in the backfield. 4 tight ends. Now, I wouldn't advise that. Maybe the Steelers are just playing around in training camp. Because I don't know how much I want Connor Hayward out there doing a whole lot of lead blocking. But needless to say, that's part of it. I think this tight end group is really, really good. I think it's one of the better groups on the football team and one of the more dynamic groups, and especially in an Arthur Smith offense where he likes to utilize multiple tight ends. I think the Steelers are going to live in 12 and 13 personnel a lot. Even in passing situations, Steelers are going to be in a lot of 12 personnel. They just are, ladies and gentlemen. It causes matchup problems for defense when you have 2 pass catching tight ends like the Steelers do. Just I would suspect they're in a lot of 12 personnel. They'll be in 11, don't get me wrong, but I think they're going to be in a lot of 12 and 13 personnel this year. So as far as, blocking, and I think blocking for this group, I think that is the part that has to be emphasized because, again, I mentioned the Arthur Smith offense, they still want to run the ball a lot. So those guys have to be able to block. You can't take out Jonnu Smith and Pat Freiermuth and just put in Darnell Washington when you're wanting to run the football. And you also can't always put Darnell Washington on play side when we're running outside zone. You can't just put him over there and then always run to his side. You just can't have those kind of tendencies. So the other guys are going to have to hold their weight and hold their water when it comes to blocking. So they're going to have to get better. Or maybe the Steelers scrap that and they use a short passing game instead of trying to run the ball so much. Maybe that'll be the difference with an Aaron Rodgers back there at quarterback. I don't know. I don't feel like that's going to be the case with Arthur Smith, but who knows? But I do think that this group, outside of Darnell Washington, those guys got to be a little bit better blockers than what they have been. They don't have to be phenomenal, but they just have to be a little bit better. Get in the way, put up a fight, and just be there. Be where you're supposed to be. That's half the battle. Don't get ragdolled out there, by a defensive end. That can't happen. They can't be getting ragdolled because then the run game can't get going where they need to get going. So let's get to the poll question, ladies and gentlemen. So, poll question number 1, which tight end do you believe will have the biggest impact on the offense this season? Which tight end do you believe will have the biggest impact this season? Is it A, Jonnu Smith, B, Pat Freiermuth, or C, Darnell Washington? And no, I did not put Connor Hayward in the poll. So for anybody that says, what about Connor Hayward? Even though I know you're joking, no, we did not do that. Make sure you put a 1 in front of the answer so we know exactly what poll question that you guys are answering. Let's move on. So, main man, Derrick Harmon. I think Derrick Harmon, and Mike Tomlin said this the other day, he is who we thought he was. There were some people, myself included, who said, yeah, he didn't really flash that much, in the first preseason game. And the thing about that is that sometimes D tackles aren't going to flash. Sometimes they just need to occupy blockers. And if they're doing that and they're not being moved and they're occupying 2 blockers so linebackers can run free, you're doing your job. In pass rush situations, it's not always about getting sacks. It's about getting pressures. And what Derrick Harmon was able to do last year, I mean, he was number one in the NCAA as far as pressures on quarterbacks. That's one of the things that he excelled at, you know, from the D line position. He was number one in the NCAA. He needs to bring that to the Pittsburgh Steelers because that's what we were lacking outside of Cam Hayward in the interior line. Our man Keanu Benton, from time to time, he would have a good pass rush, but it wasn't near consistent. Larry O, almost non-existent. Same with Montravius Adams. We had to get younger. We had to get more athletic. We had to get bigger. And this guy fits the bill of all of that. Young, athletic, and we needed that out of the D line. I mean, heck, I understand Cam's there, and don't get me wrong, people. I know Cam's holding out, but Cam's going to play football for the Steelers this year. Trust me when I say that. But he also isn't going to play forever. Steelers needed to do something as far as replacement. So I love what they did. Him and Y.A. Black. Love those two picks. But Derrick Harmon is that guy. Look, the heavy hands, the heavy active hands, strong punch with athletic hands and feet. This guy's got it, ladies and gentlemen. Um, you know, don't be too discouraged if you don't see a ton from him in the preseason. That's all I'm saying. Because again, here's the thing. Everything's vanilla. Not doing a whole lot. They did a couple of twists the other day. Just basic twists from the D line. Look good. Look good. Stuff that we didn't see last year, you know? And it was almost like the D line either wasn't good enough or wasn't athletic enough to be able to do any of those inside twists. They did a couple of those in the first game. I feel like they're going to do a lot of those. A lot of different stuff the Steelers are going to do now that you have bigger, more athletic linemen out there that can do these sort of things. Derrick Harmon is that guy. He's big, he's physical, he's athletic. Personally, again, this is just me personally, and it's really early. So we haven't seen him play a full game yet. But from everything that we've seen, practice, preseason, up to now, and it isn't just me saying this, coaching staff, other football players on the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think he's on his way to being the next great defensive tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think he is on his way. Some people are wanting him to play nose. That's not what he is. He's a 3 technique and a defensive end in the Pittsburgh Steelers 3-4. That's what he is. Just like what Cam Hayward is. That's what Derrick Harmon is. He is not a nose tackle. Now, when we play nickel, can he do some of those things inside? Yes, absolutely. When we're in 4-down linemen, can he do some of that? Yes, because again, he's a pass rusher. He can get after the quarterback. But I like the way that he does everything. That he's not just a one or a rundown defensive tackle or a pass rush specialist. He does everything well. And now he'll have to go out there, obviously, when the regular season starts. So we'll need to see all of that. But he's what the Pittsburgh Steelers needed. We talked about we couldn't stop the run last year. Here's the first step in being able to stop the run is getting defensive tackles bigger, more physical, more athletic, and younger guys up front that can do the job. Derrick Harmon seems to be that guy. I am super excited, to see what he can do when the regular season starts because a lot of people, not just me, Mike Tomlin, Cam Hayward has said it. A lot of people like this young man and what he brings to the table, people. So let's get excited about it. Let's go to the poll question. Yeah, Derrick Harmon is going to be a difference maker. And that's what he needs to be. He needs to be a difference maker and a disruptor. So, poll question number 2. What do you think is the most important quality Derrick Harmon brings to the Steelers' defensive lineup? A, size and strength. B, agility and youth. C, ability to occupy blockers. Or D, leadership. Next to Cam. So, interesting poll question there as far as what we're doing. I like Derrick Harmon. I like him. So we're going to see what he can bring to the table. But I think Derrick Harmon has an opportunity here. I think he's got an opportunity. So Make sure you put a number 2 next to the letter, and that way we know exactly what question that you are answering in the poll question. So, moving on. We are at the halftime, ladies and gentlemen, and thank all of you Steeler Almighty members, super chatters, subscribers, people that come to the channel. We salute all of you guys. Thank you guys very much for supporting the channel the way that you do. Let me just kind of go over our season schedule. Now that training camp is over, I'll go through that real quick. Once the season actually starts, we're going to have our report cards after every game on Mondays, all 22 on Tuesdays, podcast on Wednesday like this one. Not a ton on Thursday. We'll see how that goes. Friday, we'll have our scouting report. So, and then we'll always do our pregame and postgame lives after every Pittsburgh Steeler game on Sundays. Unless it's on Thursday, we'll do it on Thursday. So that's the season schedule. We're starting to get a little closer, ladies and gentlemen. We're not far away. Again, if you want to become a member and help support the channel, again, members always get all their questions answered and put up on the live, in the lives. They always get up on the screen. As far as everything else, we get the all 22. You'll get access to that if you're a member at the all pro level or higher. So you make sure if you sign up and you want to get that all 22 access where we break down the entire football game, it's all pro level or higher. If you want to watch and see the games live with us on Sundays and discuss all that and be in there for that, it's at the Hall of Fame level, which is at the top tier. So merch is also available as far as Pittsburgh or Steelers Almighty. You got all your Thunderbird shirts, Steelers Almighty shirts, hats, polos. We got everything available. We've got glasses. Everything is available now to pick up if you want to help support the channel that way and wear your Steelers Almighty gear with pride, ladies and gentlemen. They are out there, up and available. So we appreciate you guys. Thank you as always, man. Let's get back to it. So Aaron Rodgers has kind of changed the dynamics of the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. A couple of weeks ago, I talked about how Jalen Ramsey and Darius Slay has changed the mindset of the defense, at least of the secondary. Secondary was a position that was kind of on its heels the last several years. They're not on their heels anymore. They are in attack mode. They are aggressive. The mindset is we're going to be ball hawks. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to cover guys, get in guys' face. That's how that defense is playing right now, at least through the preseason. Offense is the same type of thing, is that it lacked a leader, and for so long, it just didn't have that guy. Kenny Baby Hands Pickett wasn't the guy. Guys weren't going to follow him, okay? Even, Russell Wilson, he came in and talked all the rah-rah stuff, but he wasn't the leader. And Aaron Rodgers, while he doesn't have to be the leader of the entire football team, he commands respect from all the football players on the offensive side of the ball. Number one, it's a lot of young guys over there. That's number one. So they are looking for somebody, and almost like they're looking for the approval of this guy that, okay, I need to play well to help him. And that's kind of what it looks like. Now, we saw that go two different ways. It's DK Metcalf is thriving trying to help him and, not necessarily looking for his approval, but bonding with him. Where Roman Wilson, he kind of struggled with that. Roman Wilson was looking for his approval and he was letting it affect his play. But what does Aaron Rodgers do? Aaron Rodgers comes out, and whether he bashed him publicly, which I don't think he did, I think he just told the truth about Roman Wilson and said, hey, young man, you got to get out of your own head. You got all the talent in the world. It's time to go play football and stop looking for my approval. And Roman Wilson has turned it around. He looks like a totally different wide receiver since he has done that. That's the kind of leadership that we need. Look, I've said this many times, is that the Steelers don't need a savior. Like, the franchise doesn't need to be saved by Aaron Rodgers. The Jets did. And they put all of that on Aaron Rodgers' shoulders. Now, personally, I think it was too much. He shouldn't have to be responsible for all of that, but he was. And with responsibility, comes criticism. And so he got criticized when things didn't go right. Maybe some of it was unfairly, maybe some of it was fairly. Either way, he took the brunt of it. That's not the case here in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh already has leaders. They have leaders of this football team, and it starts with the head coach. Whether you like him or you don't like him, the main thing that people talk about Mike Tomlin is he's a leader of men. So you have that already. And the defense has plenty of leaders. We just need competent quarterback play out of Aaron Rodgers. He doesn't have to come in and save the franchise. And I think a lot of people from the outside and what they keep talking about is, well, Aaron Rodgers can't do this and he's not going to be the set. Well, the Steelers don't need saving. I don't know why. I take that back. I do know why all the outside pundits say that because it gets some clicks, it gets some views. I totally understand. But the Steelers don't need saving. They just need competent quarterback play. Somebody that can get in and out of the right play, somebody that can see the field and utilize the entire football field, not just outside the numbers. Somebody that can throw the ball in the middle of the field, in between the hashes, in between the hash and the numbers. Utilize the whole field. That's something that quarterbacks haven't been doing in Pittsburgh on a consistent basis for a while. And it's troubling. It's troubling. So we got to start doing something a little bit different. And Aaron Rodgers is going to bring that to the table. Again, the last couple of years, the quarterback position, quite frankly, has been a liability for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's what everybody says, is that, hey, Mike Tomlin hadn't been able to win or the Steelers in general, because they don't have a quarterback. I'm not saying this is the Aaron Rodgers of his 4 MVP awards. I'm not saying it's the same guy. But you're not going to convince me that he's not better than the quarterback play of the Steelers over the last 5 years. You're just not going to convince me of that. I'm not going to believe it. Now, maybe he comes out and poo-poos the bed. Maybe he does. But if the line plays well, I just have a feeling this Pittsburgh Steelers offense is going to take off with Aaron Rodgers, getting guys where they need to be, making sure that they're held accountable for being there. That's another thing that Aaron Rodgers does. He holds people accountable, and he's going to do that. He's going to get in a guy's face when they're not doing it right. My thing is, how do they respond? If they respond like Roman Wilson responded, then we've got something. If they turn into renegades, then that's a problem altogether. But you can't be mad at your quarterback for trying to hold you accountable for doing something. And I understand people will say, well, what if he's wrong and throwing people under the bus, which, look, let's call it like it is. He did that with the Jets. He did that. Can't take it back, man. It happened. Can't be doing that with the Steelers. And maybe having real leadership and behind him, or leading him, should I say, may change the approach that Aaron Rodgers had. He had no leadership with the Jets. Zero. From the owner down. There was absolutely no leadership. Well, he's got a leader in his head coach. He's got other leaders on the football team. He doesn't have to lead the entire football team. So just go play competent football. If you do that, I like the Steelers' chances. I really do. Because like I mentioned, the Steelers don't need saving. They just need a leader. And I think he's the perfect fit for it. So let's go to the poll question, people. Aaron Rodgers, what can he do? What do you believe will be the biggest effect of Aaron Rodgers joining the Steelers? Is it A, improved decision-making on the field, B, increased accountability amongst the players, C, elevation of overall offensive performance, D, enhanced team culture and mindset? Those are good question and good answers to all of those. So I'll be interested to see what you guys say. Make sure you put a number 3 in front of your answer so we know exactly what poll question you are answering. All right, let's move on. So what does success look like in 2025 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, ladies and gentlemen? A lot of different people define success a lot of different ways. People, Super Bowl or bust. Got to win the division. Got to win a playoff game. Winning record. A lot of different things to define what success for the Pittsburgh Steelers is. I'm going to break them down one by one, and then I'll give you a synopsis on what I think a winning season should look like for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Number one, let's start with the winning record. Look, until the Steelers don't have one, I'm not going to bet against that. And I'm also the first person to tell you at this point in time, after the number of playoff losses, and we'll get into that in a minute, the winning record doesn't mean anything to me. So, and when I say that, doesn't define success for me with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let me take back. I shouldn't say it doesn't mean anything, because clearly it does, because it's hard to win in the National Football League. I know we make it, or we take it for granted, and I basically just took it for granted that we're going to have a winning season, but it doesn't mean anything if it doesn't lead to more success. If we just keep doing the same thing over and over again and it never leads to anything more, then that's when it starts to grow stale. Not just for me, for you, and a lot of Steeler fans out there. That's where the issue comes in. So the winning season, it's hard to win in the NFL, people. It is. And 18 straight years of winning seasons, or at least not having a losing season, that's an accomplishment. But, I mean, and I say that quickly, it's an accomplishment, but if it's not leading to more success down the road, what are we doing? Because the old mediocrity starts to set in, and that in complacency, and that's just not something that I and most of you guys out there, you're not comfortable with that. So we get into the winning season, while great, it's not enough. Not enough for me. That wouldn't define success. Now, what about a North Division title? Winning the AFC North. Well, first off, to win the AFC North, you got to win at least 12 games. Some people think you need to win more than that, and you very well might. But the minimum, the very minimum is you're going to have to win 12 games, because this division is very good. I make fun of the Browns, but the Browns somehow have found a way to beat us the last couple of years, and they stink. And we should be able to beat the Browns. That should be 2 wins, but the division is very good. It just is. You got the Bengals. You got the Ravens. The Ravens might have the best overall roster in the National Football League. And even though we beat them 8 out of 11, that's a true statement. The last 2 last year did not go very well. Did not go very well at all. And hell, we beat them the first time. We didn't even score a touchdown. So, like I mentioned, it's going to take at least 12 wins to win the AFC North. There's teams, like I said, Baltimore. I don't know if Cincinnati's going to get that high, because when your defense is that bad, I don't care what your offense is, you can't just outscore everybody. As we saw last year, you can't just outscore everybody. And especially when you have to play perfect football. And for a lot of last year, Joe Burrow was playing perfect football. Is he going to do that again? Not saying he's not going to have a great year, but is he going to play as perfect as he did last year? It's hard for me to believe that. And with the defense that seemingly got worse, I don't know, people. I don't know. But 12 wins is the minimum. And as AFC North, as we saw back in 2017, we won the division. But again, it didn't mean anything because we didn't have playoff success. So while I do want to win the division and host a playoff game, that's very, very important. I think you got to take it a step further. It's success. Don't get me wrong. You're winning a lot of games, but the postseason is where it's at. So moving to that aspect, a playoff win. Is that what the Pittsburgh Steelers need? Now, look, they have no wins in the last 8 years. Everybody knows that. The last 5 times the Steelers have been in the playoffs, 4 of those times they got their head beaten in. Now, some people, I guess they didn't necessarily get their head beaten in by Buffalo, but Buffalo was in control of that football game the entire time. I know we cut it to 7 points in the fourth quarter, but they immediately went down and scored a touchdown in like 4 plays. I don't see how the Steelers were necessarily in that game. I don't think Mason Rudolph played bad in that game, but the defense just couldn't make enough plays to go win. It happens. That's the way it happens. But the other times against Kansas City, the freaking Browns during the COVID year, I mean, they beat the brakes off. And then last year was the coup de grace when the Ravens just literally lined up and ran the ball down our throat, and there was nothing, absolutely nothing that we could do to stop them. It was disgusting. So it goes back a ways. That Kansas City playoff game in 2016 is a long time ago, people. It's a long time ago. Um, and being competitive in a playoff game, number one, would be a start. Let the game come down to the wire. That would be a start, but that's not going to be success in your eyes. It's not going to be success in my eyes either. Just being competitive, not with the roster that we currently have. I'm not going to stand for that. Gotta win. Gotta win a playoff game. I mean, I can tell you right now, if the Steelers don't win a playoff game, it's what did we do it all for? What did we make the moves that we made for if we can't get that done? So I think playoff success is basically a must. Super Bowl or bust. Now, there's some people that aren't going to be happy unless the Steelers win the Super Bowl. I'm a little bit more realistic when it comes to that because I talk about you got to take steps. You got to take steps up the ladder to win a Super Bowl. Usually teams don't go from terrible to winning the Super Bowl overnight. I understand it's happened before, so I'm not saying it's never happened, but in most cases, there's usually steps that teams have to make. And one of those steps for Pittsburgh would just be being competitive in a playoff game. But I think we have to take a step past that. Sometimes you can skip a step or two going up the ladder. Steelers have to make a leap past just being competitive. I want to see them be that. Don't get me wrong. But for success in 2025, it needs to be more of a leap. It has to be more than a leap. But I'm not either we win the Super Bowl or the season was a failure. I'm not that person. I don't think the Steelers have the roster to go out there and say that right now. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't want to win. Doesn't mean I don't expect to win the Super Bowl. But what it means is I'm more realistic and the season isn't a total failure if they don't win the Super Bowl. And I know there's going to be people, well, what are you playing for, Big B? If you don't win the Super Bowl, nothing else matters. Well, that's not true. That isn't true. Because like I just mentioned, there's steps that you have to take to get to the Super Bowl level. The Chiefs just didn't start, immediately they were a playoff team. They were a Super Bowl team every year. That's not how it worked with them. There were steps they had to take. Same thing with the Philadelphia Eagles. Steps they had to take. San Francisco 49ers, steps they had to take. So it isn't just automatically we go from winning 5 games to winning the Super Bowl. It takes a little bit. And I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are in that mode, but playoff success, and that's what I want to get to, is what's my verdict on it? I think it's a playoff win. You got to win a playoff game. If you're not going to win a playoff game with the roster that Omar Khan, Mike Tomlin, Art Rooney II, that everybody has put together, Andy Waddle, if you're not going to win a playoff game, then it's all for naught this year. Because you made the moves, you got a good mix of veterans along with young guys, and it should be enough. It should be enough to get you over the hump. If it's not, you're going to have some decisions made. We're going to talk about it. We're going to figure out what the problem is and go from there. But that's got to be, that to me, that's what success looks like in 2025. And feel free to think differently or argue, but I think you have to win a playoff game. Even if the Steelers win the AFC North and they win 14 games and they win the AFC North, they're going to host a playoff game. If they lose, then what was the point? That's my whole thing. At some point, the playoffs have to matter more. And I think they should always matter more because you've heard me say it a million times. if the Steelers could get into the playoffs without winning a regular season game and then they won 2 playoff games, I'd take that every year. I'd be upset that they lost games, don't get me wrong. But if they could win playoff games without winning regular season games, I would take it. I would absolutely take it. So that's where I'm at with it. It's playoff or bust for me. I'm not going to settle for anything less. Kind of like I'm not going to settle for the Steelers not having a top 5 defense or higher. I'm not going to settle for anything less than a playoff win. I'm just not. Whatever the case may be. I mean, injuries happen. They're going to happen for us just like they're going to happen for everybody else. Everything isn't going to be hunky dory. You're going to have to overcome some adversity. That's part of, number one, it's part of life. It's definitely part of a football season. But I don't care. I don't care. I'm not backing off of it. It's a playoff win or bust. And then once we get that playoff win, I may readjust my assessment based on where we are. Because it might, at that point, depending on how good we are, it might be, no, we need to get to the Super Bowl, and then anything can happen. So feel free to change your mind. Now, I wouldn't say that you change your mind going the opposite direction. I don't think that is feasible. Going down, lowering your expectations. I'm not going to lower mine. And be quite frank with you, I'm not going to let anybody that comes to the channel lower their expectation. I'm not going to let you do it. The Steelers are a proud organization. Enough is freaking enough. Time to win playoff games. It's time. It's just time. And if you're not going to put that together and do that, then why make these moves that we made? What was the whole point? So that's where I sit with the people. Let's go to the poll. Let's go to the poll. Poll 4 is, how important is it for the Steelers to win a playoff game in 2025 to consider the season a success? So A, not important. Regular season performance is enough. B, somewhat important. A playoff appearance is the main goal. C, very important. Winning a playoff game is a must. Or D, crucial. Anything less would be a failure. Well, I answered the question for you, at least my question. Now, some of y'all are going to have different answers again. Make sure you put number 4 in front of your answer so we know exactly what number that you are answering. But yeah, where I'm at with it. I'll just flat out put a D. Is crucial. Anything less would be a failure. Anything less than that is a failure to me. I'm not going to back off of that, people. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. Look, I understand what the Pittsburgh Steelers are trying to do. I've said it, that they're trying to rebuild. Well, they're going through a rebuild while they're trying to remain relevant. Well, I think they're not through with the rebuild. I don't want to try to act like they're done rebuilding because they're still rebuilding. Having said all of that, they're also in a position to where they can start winning. Every rebuild doesn't mean, okay, you rebuild, and then okay, fine, we're done. Now it's time to start winning. No. The Steelers are at a point to where, okay, we've rebuilt a lot, and now we can start winning while we continue to rebuild. And yes, the Steelers are at that point. I don't want to hear anything about, well, they're doing that. No. They're at a point that they can start winning at a high level and start competing with some of the better teams in the National Football League. Do I think they have a Super Bowl roster? I don't. I don't think they have that. But that doesn't mean they can't get there, because the way that the roster is constructed, they've got an opportunity. Because, again, if you have a top 5 defense, and we're not selling for anything less, and your offense can be somewhere between 12 and 16, then the Steelers got a chance. They got a chance, people. So that's what I'm hoping for. That's basically what I'm expecting. I think this could be a special year if everything comes together. So that's all I got for you today. Appreciate everybody. Thank you. As always, remember, like, follow, subscribe, continue to get in the comments section and hit the notification bell so you know exactly when Steelers Almighty content comes out. Until next time, people, we appreciate you and aloha.